County Executive is running a few minutes late, but we're not going to hold the meeting because those of you who are longtime West Laurel residents, and I see a lot of my neighbors here, you know this is a general meeting. So in addition to the County Executive, we have some things we do at West Laurel, including some business tonight, which includes our budget that you guys have to vote on. So if you're a member of West Laurel, we'll be doing that in a second. So if I get people to come on in, the scouts are ready. So we can get folks in. Plenty of seats in the front. You don't have to hide and stand in the back. Lots of seats in the front. Come on down. We gotcha. All right. Cue up the kids. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand for the presentation of the colors? Gentlemen, please remove your hats.
Color guard, attention! Audience, please rise. Color guard, forward, march! Scout, salute. Those not in uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Post the flag of the United States of America. Color guard, post the flag of the great state of Maryland. Color guard, proudly post the flag of West Laurel Pact, 1673. Color guard, honor your colors. Please recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, return to ranks. Out, face, forward, march. And future Civic Association members, I wanted to recognize, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but those of you who've been in West Laurel for a while, when we started this about 6 years ago, the kids were all teeny tiny and they were all cubbies. You notice tonight we had a lot of boys from the troop, which means they've done the bridge ceremony and bridged over to Boy Scouts, which means that our kids are staying in Scouts, and it's a great success story for us here in West Laurel to have that happen. So, let me start by recognizing we have a number of dignitaries here tonight. I won't go through everyone, but I want to recognize a couple of folks because they've been true stalwarts for us. Starting with with Delegate Pena Melnick, 21st delegation. Jim coming in from our 21st delegation. Councilwoman Layman, our very own Mary, who we all know. We have representatives from most of the departments of the county, but I also want to say thank you to the Parks Department. A lot of folks don't realize how many different groups get engaged here, and this building belongs to the Parks Department. And they, many years ago, along with the elected officials of Prince George's County, some help from the communities, got this building built, and they've done a great job in keeping it up for us. So thank you for all the members of the Parks Department, uniform as well as non-uniform.
Yes, I am, thank you. Our checking account at this point is $24,796. Our annexation fund has $2,746. And we have one certificate of deposit for $1,256. For a total of $28,798. We have at this point received dues from 455 households for the 2011-2012 fiscal year. That is, last year we had slightly less than 400 members for the entire year. And out of that 455, 123 of those have paid dues, have not paid dues in the last 2 years. So they're coming back into the fold, and we appreciate that very much. And I appreciate all of you that were giving us the money tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa. The next bit of business is our annual budget. We have to do this by our bylaws, and it's one of the things that allows us to exist. I don't know how many picked up a copy of the hotline, but most of you got it at home. You'll notice the budget is almost identical to previous years with some inflation. The biggest inflation factor, frankly, is the hotline. The costs on that have been going up year after year, much faster than what we budgeted for. So we did this year a competitive bid to 3 or 4 printers. We went with a new printer who turns out to be a West Laurel businessman. He has saved us about $150 on the first issue. So we hope that amount will go down. The total budget for this year, the proposed budget is $9,095. We also created a budget line for the Boy Scouts. We've been giving them a donation for several years, but kept it under miscellaneous. I think those are the biggest changes you'll see in the budget. So I need a motion, or either I'll look, say, are there any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we're being very short-sighted in cutting our donations, both the fire department and the rescue squad. I think that they serve the entire community.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Let me address how that came about, and again, you as residents can vote to change the budget. You realize that. The question was, for those of you who did not hear it, there was a comment that we've reduced the donations to the rescue squad and the fire department by $25 each. Rather than $125 or $150, we went to $100. It's $50 each. Sorry. And the question was, they serve the whole community, and she felt that that was short-sighted. I'll be happy to entertain discussion or happy to entertain motions on the budget, either way. The explanation for it was, frankly, the cost of the hotline. In order to make budget, in the past few years, we've only gotten 400 members. This year, the cost of the dues letters we did has been recouped. We carefully planned it out, and we got members we haven't had in previous years, as Susan just mentioned. So we've actually made money by using the letter. And our goal was, if we can get more people, we will amend the budget through the year and reinstate those amounts. But because we've not had more than 400 members for the past 10 years, I need to reach 607 members to make this budget. If we go past 607 members, we can amend the budget and reinstate those donations. Yes, ma'am.
But don't you think that, you know, these two things are more important than increasing the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts? I mean,
we didn't increase the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts.
It's up to $400 between the two.
Okay, so let me give a little background that I didn't know until I joined the Civic Association. When West Laurel was built, there's actually a set of covenants for West Laurel that have been long lost. Nobody knows about them. But one of the original covenants that the county put upon us when we built West Laurel all those years ago, long before I was here, was that the county, that there'd become a civic association and it sponsor the Cub Scouts.
Yes, but
and the cost of sponsorship is $300. The covenants state that we pay for their annual charter. So the amount has only gone up as the charter cost has gone up. It's not a donation per se to them. That money goes to the Boy Scouts of America so they can exist. So that $300 may have gone up, but that's only because of inflation. The kids don't get anything for that. That's the charter. It's our requirement for here in West Laurel to exist. So we added the $100 for the Boy Scouts about 4 years ago when the kids from the Cubs started staying in Scouts. We've talked to the Girl Scouts, they've not asked for anything, and that's how that $100, and that's been a flat amount since they came into being. And we co-sponsored their charter as well because they are part of the group 1673. You'll notice the little kids and the big kids all wear the same number. So our $300 now sponsors 2 troops, and the $100 is that extra bit for the second troop.
I have nothing against the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, but I do think that we need to have the rescue squad and the fire department for all of our citizens. And I've never had to use them, but we know they're there if we need them.
Folks, so I need to make, we need to move this along because when the county executive comes, we'll do it. But I need to point out to you one thing. All of us can make individual donations, which I know many of us do in addition to this. I need to have a vote. How many, I need a motion for the budget.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the budget as proposed.
So by voting, you'll be able to express your opinion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor of the budget as proposed? Only those West Laurel residents. If you're not a resident, you can't vote.
You've got to have a
All those
mark on your
opposed
head.
to the budget? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 hand. Okay. It's clear that the majority was in favor of the budget. However, we will note that if we reach a larger number of members, we will be reinstating. That was part of our discussion at the board. So, Barbara.
I would make a recommendation that that be our first thing, if we get to that number, that it goes to the volunteer workers.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add my voice to that, to bring it back to the original amount for the Department of
Right.
Road Squad.
I understand this, but as I've told you, we had a choice. No hotlines, or figure out the cost of the hotline and try and increase the membership. For those of you who haven't paid your dues, I encourage you to pay them because that allows that to happen.
Get your neighbors to pay, and then we can donate to the...
Right. I have one other thing. Is Mr. Ott here? Mr. Ott, front and center, please. One of the things we do intermittently here in West Laurel, as you all know, is our Good Neighbor Award. We catch somebody being good. Wayne, plenty of seats up front. Come on in. And when we catch people being good, it's usually not the board who finds them. It's another resident who calls up and says, you know, so-and-so has mowed my lawn, or has helped with this, or has done something extraordinary. Phil has been Mr. Go-To for a lot of things. He's always here. So in honor of that, in recognition of his continued support of community events, because no matter what it is, Phil is there to set up, take down, clean tables, whatever you ask, Phil does it. So Phil, congratulations and thank you. Carmen Camacho, one of our local residents, runs a company and she donated the plaque for us, so thank you for that.
Congratulations.
Last bit, while we wait for Mr. Baker, is for those of you who didn't pick it up, I'll ask you to try it on the way out the door. There were yellow sheets with something that said dates to remember. We have a number of activities coming up here in the community. The swamp meet is still scheduled for Saturday, even if it rains. Bethany Church is hosting the first ever Laurel-wide instead of the small neighborhood-wide. You bring your stuff. It's free to whoever sees it and wants it. They take your stuff, you take their stuff, and at the end of the day, if your stuff's still there, you got a cart at home.
Team Challenge will take it.
Oh, Team Challenge has it, so you don't even have to cart your stuff home. Even better. So thank you to Pastor Kevin, who's over here tonight, from Bethany Community Church. Church in the parking lot. The second thing was supposed to happen Saturday afternoon was our community celebration, where we have people from across the community. Due to the weather and inclement what we're expecting on Saturday, the afternoon portion will happen on Sunday. So I ask that you note that. The rest of the things, for those of you who don't know, like me, I don't have children, be ready at dusk on Monday night is trick or treat. So be home, turn on your house lights. If you're not going to give trick or treat, make sure your lights are out so the kids aren't stumbling around in the dark and thinking you're there. And the last thing there are two other things I want to highlight. Next Saturday, a week from Saturday the 5th, dumpster day. Thank you to the county. Here's my DER folks from the county. There they are. Thank you for making this possible. It's an hour and a half ride to the dump, and when we get these dumpsters twice a year, we fill up 300-ton dumpsters in less than 3 hours. So that's a great thing. 9 a.m. till they're filled. Do not show up at 7:30. Do not come at 8 o'clock. I please ask you to come. You can come a few minutes before 9, but you got to give us time to get things up. We'll be using not the front of the building, but the side parking lot. That same day we have the West Laurel Stallions playing and the Laurel Boys and Girls Club playing. So it's going to be crowded up here. We use the side parking lot. Lots of extra chairs up front. So let me invite people down.
Or they're due there, so if you want to sit.
We've got Operation Christmas Child for the 12th year in West Laurel. Shoebox filling on Friday, November 11th, from 2 to 5 here in the building. And last but not least, a lot of you wrote in on your dues that you wanted the area meetings to come back. So what we're going to do is, rather than do 5 area meetings, we're going to do the east side and the west side. So the first one will be December 15th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. here. And if you live on the east side of Bond Mill, i.e. Bower, Bounds, Bradford, Calshot, Canfield, Darwin, Diploma, you know the drill. Go up the road. If you're on that side, coming from 198, if you're on the right side, the 15th of December, we'll have Officer Bisak here, and code enforcement has agreed they will bring someone out here that night, because those seem to be the 2 popular topics. I think that's it. Yes?
When is the other one?
Melissa, the dumpsters end at 12:30.
Okay, dumpsters end at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, 12:30, so the general will be here, but it's 12:30 or until they're filled. Our previous dumpster days, they filled up very early. So don't sleep in on Saturday the 5th and think you're going to be able to bring up all your stuff. I want to point out one other piece with that. Give me 1 second, sir. As we did last year, the Civic Association has been doing a lot of outreach to seniors. We have people who are seniors or people with disabilities who have a hard time. So we have in the other room Jason Float. He and John E. there and a few of the other, oh, there he is, he's in the back of the room right now. And a few of the other neighbors, thank you, Jen, have volunteered. So if you're a senior and you have stuff that you want in the dumpster and you have no way to get it to here at the building, please give Jason a call. He's got a little table set up in the other room. You can step out for a minute, talk to him. We will arrange, volunteers will come by, get your stuff, and get it up here to the dumpsters. He's also doing outreach for other things. If you have a light bulb that's burnt out and you can't get on a chair because of stability, let him know. We're trying to do some outreach for those of you who are, politely said, with gray hair, since I have gray hair, and we want to keep you in the community, we want to keep your houses safe for you to live in. Since we're still waiting, I have one last announcement. The Cubbies have their popcorn sale going on in the other room as well. So feel free to support them. That's where they actually make their true money. Feel free to do that. Do we have any other announcements while we're waiting for the county executive? Yes, sir.
Clarification on the dumpster day this time, we're not having to shred it.
No shredder, no hazardous waste, and no electronics. Hazardous waste, as our reps here will be happy to tell you, is hard to dispose of. It is available in Upper Marlboro. And electronics, Best Buy will actually take your stuff pretty much free of charge. So you can haul it over to Best Buy, your old monitors, your old whatever. They've been very good about taking things. Yes?
2 other items. The Scouts are going to be doing a food drive to help support the local shelters. You could be getting bags delivered to your door, you know, those white bags, okay, on your mailbox on your door, the same day as the dumpster day. And the following week, they would be arriving It's extra food that you
Okay.
have.
So, for those who didn't hear, the annual Scout Food Drive, they'll be putting the bags on your mailboxes on Saturday the 5th, picking things up on Saturday the 12th. Any other, yes, we got back there, yes ma'am.
Yes, I'm representing my mother who is over on Acres and Lane, couldn't be here this evening.
Oh.
She apologizes. She'd like an update on the status of where things are with the church at the Palmer property.
Okay. Let me just, I'll be happy to tell you one thing.
Yes.
I won't even bother
I
Councilwoman
mean, I know
Lehman.
the Laurel leader said that the court date had been postponed until the 20th of October.
Then you have officially what's going on there. Basically, it has to go back to court. The county cannot comment on it because it's in process.
Well,
Yeah.
Did you go to court on the 20th?
I'm not from the county. I live here in West Laurel and I'm a
Do you
volunteer.
know whether they did or not?
Mary said that.
All I can say is there was an oral argument in federal court last week before Judge Titus, the same judge who heard the case prior, and he'll be issuing a decision on whether the last council action complied or not with his order of 2 years ago. So it's a wait and see kind of thing. And his
So we don't
decision
know
could be out
anything.
any day, but we don't know when that would be.
Because quite frankly, just to help express her opinion on her behalf, she feels like if they had 3 acres already approved and 3.6 that's been approved, what's with their architect that they can't build it on 6.6?
Thank you very
So
much.
certain is this crook.
I think the Civic Association has, we are on record as, so the Civic Association on your behalf, all of you who are West Laurel residents, it's a public document. The board is a full range of people who speak out on all topics. We reached a consensus that our petition, or our letter we submitted formally on the case was to not endorse any further expansion, but to support the master plan that's in existence that says you must build within the guidelines, which is the smaller property. We also expressed our concerns on the environment and the drinking water and the impact. And the last thing the Civic Association noted in our formal letter was we were concerned on the traffic impacts on a blind curve. Again, those are on the record. There's nothing more we can do at this point, and it is a wait and see between the county and the judge and the church.
I understand. I appreciate that because she'll be glad to know that you.
So the Civic Association has gone on record.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything about vacuum leak pickup?
There will be no vacuum leaf pickup this year. The budget can't afford it. Unless you want to go to speak on that. The answer is we put our leaves out in bags once again this year. And right, they're picked up on Wednesday. Yard waste day. Is it Wednesday on both sides of West Laurel? I don't know. Okay. Wednesday on both sides of West Laurel. I just know my week. So you can put them out on Saturday, but they won't get picked up till Wednesday. And do not rake them to the curb. Or in the gutter, yeah. So, unfortunately, it's a budget issue with the county. We asked last year, actually last summer, I asked this, our member who's sitting right here, did they rent out their trucks since they're not using them? We'd be happy to rent them as civic associations. And they kind of looked at me funny and said, we don't think we'll do that. So we have tried to do a self-help, and that did not work. Delegate Pena-Melnick.
I have a message. Last week, Senator Roosevelt, Delegate Barnes, Frosh, and I finished with congressional redistricting. And your new Congresswoman will be Congresswoman Donna Edwards. She actually was going to stop by tonight, and she has another conflict. She's going to try to see if she can stop by. But she would like to come and address you in the future. And I know Melissa, I'll give you her contact information, but she wanted me, I spoke to her today, she wanted me to communicate to you that she's looking forward to representing you, and would like to come and visit and to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Well, actually, while you're standing up, Jocelyn, we knew the 21st delegation would be here. Jim, are you in the back room or are you in the front room? Must be the back room. We had a question, the county executive's here, so I'll hold it, but I will get you, which was, our question was, why as our delegates did you not give us more information? And basically we feel, because we've sold down the river.
Yeah, we didn't have it, but we'll be really answering.
Folks, there's Mr. Baker right there. Would you give him a round of applause? a conversation with the residents of West Laurel. So you're more than welcome to come on up and pull a chair. You don't need to stand, you can sit, we don't care. We got a couple bottles of water up front.
I mean, it's gonna be a long, is Mary gonna come sit with me? Come on, Mary. Will you come here?
Sit in a hot seat next to Mr.
Come on.
Baker.
There you go.
So folks,
Mary said you were gonna be very nice to me tonight.
that's right. Be nice,
I would
because,
protect him if I had him.
well, first thing to know about West Laurel is, one, we are very interested and engaged on lots of topics throughout the county. I think when we sent your office a list, it covered everything from health and safety, environment, zoning, transportation, you name it. We had questions our residents sent in. And they're on issues well outside the boundaries of West Laurel. So the first thing we want you to know is we're active, we listen, we care. The second thing is, we wanted you to have the opportunity to come out and see this end of the county. Because I bet you didn't have any idea it went this far north.
You know what, as I was coming, I was thinking that.
It's a long drive to Marlboro. As I told your assistant, it's 15 minutes to Rockville and 45 to Marlboro from here. So we just want to point that out. Our residents are always good at asking questions. As always, there's no problems. We're pretty respectful. I'm going to kick it off because I had about a dozen people send me, and then we're going to start taking from the community. I think we have some write-ins, Cassandra.
Yep.
So let me start with the first one. Gosh. So someone just asked before you came in about some of the development and zoning issues. Yes, ma'am. Oh, transportation.
Excuse me.
You are.
I'm the one communicator.
Oh, sure. Sure. Folks, for those who don't know who are here, we have, in addition to the Parks Department from the Prince George's County government, we have Gary Cunningham, who's from Code Enforcement. And we had a great meeting with them yesterday. The local zoning new supervisor and the head inspector, Mr. Green, were out here yesterday for a meeting with me to discuss some issues. It's looking like things are turning around. We have, I think everybody from DER, which was Carol, Beverly, and
Can you please stand up so they can see?
Susan, I'm sorry, I just, you know, you're,
If you can say your name again, please.
Good evening, I'm Sarah Vogel-Carr, Deputy Director in the Department of Environmental Resources.
I like you for coming.
Go ahead.
waste management, okay, so did you replace Carol, is that the swap and roof? Recycling. Oh, she was recycling, okay. And Susan is kind of does everything.
I'm Susan Hubbard from the Department of Public Works and Transportation.
So between DER and Public Works, we've got all the issues covered. So if you need to, here's your go-to
I
team.
do, and we've got the fire chief and the fire chief.
Chief, yep, we've got them here. We've got Park Police as well as Prince George's County Police District 6. So we've got a bunch of.
Brian Moe, can you introduce yourself?
We know Brian, he's already said hello. Folks, we've got a bunch of seats up front if you want to come on down and grab a chair, you don't have to stand. So I'm gonna, am I missing? Oh, the other Mo, there he is, sorry. I didn't even see you. The other Mo, I didn't see you. And what's your honor? I'm so thankful it's election season. Most people don't know it in West Laurel because you've known me as an adult. But anyone who grew up in Cheverly with me and went to Bladensburg knows my name is Mo Daston, spelled M-O-E. So every time I see those signs, I thank you for applauding me. That's my name right down the road at election season. I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, Chevrolet.
Oh, and Donna Edwards, Chief of Staff, is here. There we go. Thank you very much. All right, so let me throw in the first question that folks wrote in, and then we're going to go to the audience here. We already had a question about development and zoning, the case that we said we can't comment on. But we did have a question semi-related to it. Let me take off. I'm one of those people who has to take my glasses off to read. The state of Maryland, DER, the state level, recommends that development along the waterways be limited to 10 to 15% of the total area of a plot. DER further said that Development exceeding 15% impacts downstream water quality, and at 25% there's an impact on species diversity. For that reason, Montgomery County limits the development to sensitive areas of 10%, i.e. abutting a waterway like the Anacostia, the Potomac, the Patuxent, Beaver Creek, and there your own Chevrolet. As a Chevrolet kid. The Reaching Hearts proposal is to develop 33% of their property. We're not going to discuss Reaching Hearts. Our question really is, given that this case is a precedent being watched by our sister counties, there are 2 cases in Montgomery County that are on hold watching this actually, where we've testified because we span both counties. And so we were interested on, are you aware of the land mass that's being proposed against the DER state standards, and is it a concern to you? It's really just a conversation. That they're using 33% as their proposal to develop their property, where the state has said no more than 15 and you go further. So in general, it's not just Reaching Hearts. It applies to the Anacostia, it applies to Beaver Creek. We have developments being asked. Sure.
I would just say I'm not familiar with the standard you're talking about, the 33% in DER. I don't know if Sarah has any insights or comments. I mean, I think you all know.
I may have, again, I get these written into me. I'm the moderator. I just read what gets written.
This might be somebody, we have very smart people in this community, a lot of scientists and other smart people who maybe know something I don't know about this topic. I would just say, I mean, people know my environmental record. One of the few endorsements I got was the Sierra Club, and if anything, I would be for a stronger standard. I'd like to see us have a stronger standard. I'm on the Transportation, Housing, and Environment Committee in Upper Marlboro, and we have jurisdiction over stormwater and those kinds of issues, and I, argued strenuously for the strongest bill possible, and we ended up with a consensus bill that ultimately I could live with, but I, have very, very high expectations and standards for environmental, protection and quality.
In terms of the environment, I don't know about that particular question. I will have staff look at it. I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to. But I will say this, and I think Councilmember Lehman is absolutely correct. There are a number of people on the council who argue for a stronger environmental bill, and there were others who asked for a stronger one that businesses said they wouldn't come to the county at all. I think what was crafted out was a compromise that gave each side something. And I have to give credit to the council member you have, Councilmember Lehman and Councilmember Olson, for working very hard to come up with what I thought was a compromise on all sides. I said that if nobody was pleased with me, it must be pretty correct. And I think we got something that moves Prince George's County toward where we want to go. So in terms of that, I think we're moving in the right direction. But we'll look at the question.
Thank you very much.
If I could put that really quickly in a development context, in some parts of the county, some council members inside the Beltway are much more concerned about redevelopment, whereas up at this end of the county, we're looking, more toward Conterra and newer development. But we have some important redevelopment projects, and the one I get asked about most frequently is Laurel Mall. And I just had a briefing on Laurel Mall. It's, there's a new developer that's come in, he's local, has a very exciting plan, and we talked about our new stormwater law and how, he knows exactly what to expect now. For a couple of years, we didn't really have a stormwater law on the books, and there was this question about, if you had an application in the pipeline, what standard did you have to meet, the old one or the one that's, coming down the road. And this new concept, this new plan is really exciting. It's a young guy with great ideas, proven out of Howard County, actually grew up in the Ellicott City area, a guy named Brian Gibbons, and he has won, all kinds of environmental and design awards. He actually designed Annapolis Town Center, if you've ever been there, as well as Hunt Valley Town Center. And so this new plan gets away from the mall concept completely. The previous plan was going to preserve the core of the indoor part of the mall and then kind of build a hybrid town center / mall. This guy came in and said that doesn't make any sense. His company specializes in reviving, dead malls. I mean, Annapolis that shopping center was completely dead, as in like vacant. The stores had been closed for years, and his company won a national environmental award for going above and beyond and doing an environmental cleanup because of a dry cleaner that had just dumped all their chemicals for years and years and years straight into the groundwater. So that's an exciting, result. I think that the certainty that that new stormwater law is going to bring to the development process and redevelopment.
Would you give your name and where you live in Laurel?
I'm Vicky Cleveland Foster, and I'm with North Laurel Civic Association. I came here to meet with you.
Okay, so I will tell you, if you're from North Laurel, we're gonna hold your question.
No.
West Laurel.
This question is irrelevant to the Laurel law.
It's fine, but I'm gonna hold it unless a resident asks it,
Okay.
because this is our community fall meeting, and I do have to give precedence
Okay.
to our own residents. But Mary, you asked a question on redevelopment, and then we're gonna take some of the ones folks have handed in tonight. It's a great lead-in, because we told you, our residents from all over the county. And we had a couple of questions on transportation, a number of them. And a number of them dealt with building out the infrastructure. What are you doing to create infrastructure before you build? And at the same time, someone asked a really thought-provoking question, I thought, which is the Commission 2000 primary recommendation was to focus on redeveloping, or their phrase was restoring the core. I don't know if you recall that study, which is inside the Beltway, where public transit exists, the roads exist, the schools exist. And so the question was, it's very confusing. This person said, it's very confusing. Why are large projects like Conterra in the north end and the Smith property in the south end in Marlboro being encouraged instead of redevelopment, or are they being done with redevelopment? Can you talk about your commitment to restoring the core, sir?
Yes, I mean, our folks in this administration, I think I've made it pretty clear that, since we're dealing with limited resources, it's not like the county has a heck of a lot of money. So the focus that we're going to have over the next 3 years and some change that I have in the administration is really inside our Beltway area. To take that and see if we can take those established neighborhoods that we have, where you have metro system buses, but they're older houses that we haven't paid attention to. And I think that's where we can really start doing some transit-oriented development. So that's going to be the focus of where we spend a lot of the county's money. But we're also going to make sure, and I think the stormwater management bill that Councilor Lehman talked about, and the approach to other parts, we want to make sure that places like Laurel and the northern part of the county actually, that we encourage the type of development the community wants. But our focus with limited resources has got to be on those established neighborhoods. If you look at Suitland, you look at Branch Avenue, Naylor Road, all those Capitol Heights, all of those places that are close to the district line, where quite frankly we're losing the battle. The district is building up and we're losing out. So for us, we want to shift the focus in terms of resources and development around there. But we also want to make sure that the places that we see growing, we talk about Conterra in the north. One of the reasons Conterra in the north went forward and was able to get money is because, quite frankly, the state felt it was the #1 project for them. With the ICC coming in, the opportunity to have a development here to create jobs made it a priority. If you look coming down Route 1, near College Park, leading to the district line, those are some areas where we think around that Greenbelt Metro Station, we really want to do some transit-oriented development. We were at a project the other day, the brick that was really Brickyard. That was fantastic because it even though it's way up here in the northern part, it actually fits in with the type of development we want to see happen. It's near established neighborhoods. It's near a MARC train. We can see that there's the ability to have walkable, sustainable community. There's an idea that we can actually, as we expand over environmental resources and the transportation department, that if we talk about bikes, the big thing that they're seeing in DC is these bikes, that we have the opportunity to do that. So our focus with limited resources, and I say this whether I'm up here or I'm in Franklin District in the south, is that with these limited resources, we want to capitalize and see Prince George's County grow around that core area we're talking about. In terms of our approach to transportation, Susan, I don't know if do you have anything to add in terms of, you know, we try to coordinate our transportation and our development together, but sometimes, you know, there are developers who look at it differently. I don't know if there's any particular question there.
Well, I think we're going to take one. Do you want to address, or do you want to wait and see if the residents may want to do the follow-up? So, let me just open this up. You've got one there?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It changes the conversation.
That's
So,
fine.
Okay.
And then we're going to open up to the room and what people ask.
So somebody asked, why are you seeking to change the format of the fire commission, both in general as well as, you know, particularly because it does manage its own budget?
Well, the county executive is he's not afraid to answer this question, but I said I would take it first. We have a great volunteer contingent here in the room, and I have tremendous respect for them, but we also have our chief, and I have enormous amount of respect for him as well. They're all professionals. They do a great job in this county. We have, if you don't know it, we have a combined, I think most of you realize, because we have a strong volunteer presence here in Laurel, great tradition. But we do have a combined volunteer fire service, and there are in fact about roughly twice as many volunteers, active volunteers that go out on calls as paid firefighters, and they save this county a lot of money. There's a long history of you know, how this system was set up. It was, you know, an all-volunteer department until we passed our charter form of government, and then the charter addressed the issue, setting up you know, kind of the rules, as it were, for a hybrid volunteer career system. And the county executive came out with legislation that would change the role of the commission significantly. I expressed strong opposition to it just because I didn't feel like I didn't feel like it was fair, but I also thought that the process was not you know, what it should have been, where all the stakeholders were brought to the table and there was an attempt to work out you know, a true consensus agreement. And consensus, what, you know, is my definition of that is what can everyone live with. I think, you know, after some intense discussions and debate, I do give the county executive credit because after a very passionate hearing in the Public Safety and Fiscal Management Committee, I sat in on that hearing, packed room, a lot of interest in the issue. I'm not a voting member of that committee, but I, along with all my colleagues, asked some very tough questions of the administration and urged that the administration take a step back and kind of enter into, if you will, almost like a cooling off period. And the county executive did that. So I do give him a lot of credit for that. It's not an easy thing to do in politics. And you know, I said to him after I got the word that he was willing, you know, to pull back and allow for some time for both sides to, you know, see if they could work things out and come up with a consensus plan. I said to him, you know, my sister has a saying, which is that when people show you who they are, believe them. And I said, you know, you showed me who you were just by taking that step back. So I do give him a lot of credit. I give the chief a lot of credit, and I think, and I hope that both sides, I believe they'll work in good faith to try to come up with a consensus. But it's a thorny issue and it's emotional, and I get that, and Mr. Baker does as well.
Thank you. So let me just say, first of all, I want to thank Councilmember Lakeman for her work on this issue. And I want to thank the fire chief. I said from the very beginning that we would put men and women in positions running our department, and that I would listen to them. That I wanted to make sure that we gave them all the support that we can. And I said that to the fire chief. I said at any time, decisions that I'm making are not in step with the things that you need to do to not only run your department effectively, but for the morale. The last thing I wanted to do was to send any signal at all to the volunteer firefighters that they were, one, not welcome or not a significant part of protection in Prince George's County. It is public safety. Certainly there were some mistakes made in the beginning of introducing this legislation, and it was mine. I'm the county executive. One of the things that I said going forward is that on any issues, and we're going to agree and disagree on issues over these next 3 years and some months, But the one thing I don't want to have happen is for people to feel that they can't come in and state their case beforehand. And I didn't do that. That's not the fire chief's fault. That's not anybody in my staff's fault. That's my fault, because I'm the one who made the promise. So hold me accountable. But I did want to make sure that the volunteer firefighters understood how much we respect and need them. We can't do our job here without them. And so we want to have a situation where we can bring all sides together. We can hear the issue out. I do think there needs to be some changes made. I want to make sure that, but those are structural and changes I think we all need to agree, both career and volunteer and the chief and his staff, senior staff, on how we run this fire department that we all need and that serves us so well. So having done that, and having listened to my good friend to my right, and other good colleagues that I see, like my good friend Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick and others, who weighed in. I have to tell you this, he probably doesn't want me to say this, but the good mayor of Laurel, called me up and said, I'm not telling you how to run the county. I support you. You're my county executive. But I'd like to give you some feedback. But ultimately, the chief called after having a hearing with everyone and said, I think we ought to slow walk it. And that's what we're going to do, because the best thing to do is to have everybody on board, because we need you, and we need the morale up to its fullest. We have a lot of crises that are going on, as you can see from this last 10 months of natural crises that happened in Prince George's County. And so, as I'm fond of telling my children, when I make a mistake, I admit that I made a mistake, and I try to rectify that. But I do think there's some changes that need to be made, and I think that we're going to work those out. We're going to come up with something that we all can feel proud about.
I'm sorry, just as a follow-up. What is it, or I guess what's the reason behind wanting to change this system that's been in place for however many years it's been in place?
Well, I think
that was one of the original.
Right. I think some of the concerns that were raised. One, if you look at the residency requirement of the fact that our and this dealt with the commission, not with the volunteer firefighters, with the volunteer commission. You deal with the residency requirement. There was an issue that was raised during the transition that none of the commissioners live in Prince George's County. The makeup of how they're selected raised concern. You look at the fact that you've got a $12 million is what the budget is. The checks and balances there. So I think legitimate issues were raised during the transition period. And so what we simply want to make sure is that if you're dealing with public dollars, that the checks and balances are there. And I think that was the reason.
Okay. What I'm going to do right now is...
excuse me. I'd like to correct something.
And you are, please?
My name is Tim Thaxton. I live on Forest Mill Lane.
Great. Thanks.
Some of the commissioners, there's 9 of them, do not live in Prince George's County. The majority of them, I believe 6, if not 7, do. I just wanted to correct that.
Thank you.
Thanks. I just had a little whisper in my ear, so I'm going to ask you guys to, if you've got transportation issues, we're going to handle those. Susan's politely saying she needs to go home. What she's not saying, what I learned in the background is, tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. is the snow drill. And she's running it. So let me just ask, we had a few people write in about pathways, bike pathways, and Mr. County Executive does some of that. Do you guys have transportation questions? Highways, safety, roads?
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir.
I'm live on Gale, walk up and down the Cahill, Barcelona Lane twice a day. And so my cars going down there going too fast. I think we get some speed bumps in there, especially on the Cahill. A lot of kids out there.
So let me just tell you, I bet you if I ask for show of hands, how many of y'all are concerned about traffic safety in the town, speeding in West Laurel? Okay, so you're going to see 90% of the people believe we need some sort of traffic calming
Oh,
capability.
I'm one.
You're one, and you just saw lots of others here, so I want to make sure they understand it's not a one-person issue. We've been coming and talking to the county about this for a long time. There are very strict rules about how you get speed bumps, and there's a new philosophy. But we would ask potentially that the county come out, we'll put together a little meeting and make it volunteer. Come out, we have a traffic team. I'm not sure Brian's here tonight, did he make it? No. His father had surgery last week, so our member of the board, who is an engineer for the city of Laurel actually, is volunteering to do the traffic safety. He and, I think Tom Gernove is here, I think he and Tom have actually ponied up to do that. There's Tom. But I'd like to do that because speeding is horrible here. We've worked with District 6 quite heavily on this. The flashing sign, you're going 50 miles in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. We've done ticketing, we've had ticket enforcement out here. It's not helping. We have only one four-way stop. It's actually a three-way, it's a T intersection. It is consistently blown through, and it is the road to the school. So, and it's not just enforcement. Part of it is we have very broad boulevards. I guess the best way to characterize a number of our roads, they're wide, and people do not slow down because they're not worried about hitting parked cars. Because
Tell me the reasons why it's being delayed, or we can't do it, or what?
Have we done a traffic study there, you know?
let me turn it over to Susan.
Off the top of my head, I believe that we have. We cannot put speed humps on certain roadways. We cannot put speed humps on a collector or an arterial roadway. We can put them in residential areas, and if a residential area does not qualify by the stringent survey assessment that our traffic engineers do, there is another way that you can get speed humps on a roadway if it is not a collector nor an arterial roadway. And that is, we do a 90-60 formula. If you can get 90% of the persons who live on that primary street and 60% of the persons who live on those streets that feed into that primary street, we will put the speed humps, but only on residential roadways.
So let me kind of take this question and twist it a bit. I think people say speed humps, the only as I can do. I think people use speed humps because that's what we're familiar with. However, the more modern engineering I'm being educated by our member of the board is traffic calming. I know the town of Cheverly has done a lot of work in that. You know, my mom just left there about 8 years ago. What are the rules for that? Because there are other ways to calm traffic. So it's so stringent for speed humps and they're hard. Do you mind, Susan, talking to us?
Traffic calming entails many more things than just speed humps. However, if we are talking about traffic calming, putting in chokers, putting in narrower lanes, and putting in sidewalks, if in fact there is a right way, or bike lanes, or whatever the case may be, all of that goes back to budget. And I hate to say that it goes back to budget, but we don't have the budget to do that. I will tell you that the new county executive and your council member are very, very aggressive in that area, especially your council member, very aggressive in trying to get
Really aggressive.
out here for you all. But she can only do what she can do because she has to work with 8 other members. As the budget becomes more flush, then we will get the allocations so that we can then implement those things.
All right, first, back here. Yes, sir?
If I could just ask, I mean, it's one of the reasons we're trying to get revenues from Annapolis. And unless we start bringing in additional resources, a lot of these things we're just not going to be able to do. And so it's going to be very important.
And to that end, with one of your state delegates and your state senator here, Prince George's County does not receive highway user revenue funds either. That was cut several years ago, and that is money that was put towards those things as well.
All right, first follow-up, and then we got a second follow-up. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yellow shirt.
They're getting ready to tear up Bond Mill Road, the water authority.
I saw that.
Okay, when you tear up Bond Mill Road and you rebuild it, put roundabouts in Bond Mill Road to slow down the traffic.
We can
Is that for the geese?
This is one of the things that I don't get feedback.
treasures. This side wants it, this side doesn't want it. That's why we have to come out, we have to do the assessment, then we have to work with your community. We would work through your HOA, if it's not an HOA.
Well, it's a civic
we would work
association.
through. Yeah, all right, quiet, my turn. We would work through your civic association, and we would then go door to door to see if in fact you all wanted them. I know that there was a question, if I could revert back to the WSSC. Yes, we do work with WSSC as well as the other utilities. Frankly, our budget is so bad. That's how a lot of the inner beltway roadways were repaved, in working with the gas company, because that was the only way we could do it. We work with WSSC, and we meet with them on a monthly basis. And we have a schedule with them. Unfortunately, WSSC does not always stick to their schedule, and there are reasons for that are not within their control. A lot of it has to do with funding. When they do the road, WSSC will be responsible for totally repaving that roadway to bring it back to a better condition than it is now. But we cannot make them do any extra things like put in roundabouts or sidewalks or streetlights. But, I mean, we can certainly have somebody look at it and see if that's a feasibility.
Well, I chime in, we have Delegate Penny Melnick, who sits with WSSC as a part of that conversation, so there may be some things. Dr. Solomon-Webb, I think you had a question, and then Susan.
Just a quick question. You were saying that there's a tremendous budget issue, but something like restriping to do bike lanes rather than having boulevard freeway, I bet you'll get residents here who'd be happy to donate a budget of paint.
And we probably will, and I'm not going to say that we will do that or we won't do that. We can do an assessment of the roadway to see if in fact we can make it safer, if we can control the speeds. But a lot of that depends upon the makeup of the roadway, what kind of a roadway it is, and what the flexibility of doing so.
But if the roadway is just about to be rebuilt, and it's just about to be dug up, maybe that can be looked at.
You mean Bond Mill?
Yeah.
We can look at it.
It's going to be stem to stern.
It would be a perfect time for them, it would cost no difference to do a repaving.
That is, it's a good point, Barbara, it's a good opportunity. The new water sewer pipe replacement won't be till 2013, I believe. And it looks like it will go down the center of Von Mill Road. It is going to be incredibly disruptive. There's just no two ways about it. It's going to go right through the heart of the community. I did have a meeting a few weeks ago with Jerry Johnson, who's the GM at WSSC, and his budget staff, and I said, you know, I need to be certain that you're going to make it, you know, to the degree you can to minimize the amount of inconvenience, and then to do a fantastic job. That the money will be there, correct? And they said, absolutely, we'll make sure, and we know you'll make sure that we make sure it's done right. But that would be a good time to have those conversations. If the road's going to be torn up, absolutely, that's the time to discuss. It was funny that Jerry said, you know, roundabouts, because Susan knows this as well as anyone. What, you know, one person thinks is an ideal solution, you know, speed humps. Tom Dranoga can tell you that Andy Appleman would say that is one of those, like, the fascinating speed hump, you know, it's like government 101. People in theory say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and then, but where the rubber hits the road and you go around and you poll people individually and say, will you sign on the dotted line that I want speed humps on my street, right, Susan? All of a sudden people are like, no, you know, they think it, you know.
All right,
but we can have
bring
that.
this in because we've got a few follow-ups. I'll make one other comment on WSSC. In addition to Councilwoman Wayman, Delegate Penny Melnick, Senator Rose Pell, and I have all been engaged with them. The survey will not be complete till December, and in December we will be able to look at the final path and report out to all of you. We had another question back here. Wait a minute, Susan, and then I have another question.
Mary may have started to answer my question. Will you keep an oversight on the paving they're doing? You mentioned that you expected the paving of Von Mill to be better than it is now, but yet when we had a meeting with WSSC, they said that they would do one piece, and as they finished that piece, they would pave. Then they would do another piece and pave, which would make it patchwork. And we asked if they would go back to repave the entire thing when they were done, and they said no.
I cannot speak for WSSC, and I would not propose to speak for WSSC. I can only speak for my department.
I will tell you that we have our inspectors who are out with them on a daily basis. There are reasons sometimes that they do what you're calling a cut and patch, but it isn't necessarily cut and patch because they go back and then can do an entire overlay so that you don't have kind of a jointed system there. And that is something that we can certainly encourage them to do. And
Thank you.
certainly working with the county executive and the county council member, I am sure that they will be willing to do so.
Right. I mean, one of the things that we're going to make sure we do is, I mean, the WSSC is doing this work, and we have commissioners on WSSC, and of course the state has oversight of WSSC, and your council member is going to make sure that we're on it. But we will make sure that they do everything they're supposed to do. I mean, we've experienced, if you've been in Chevrolet when they dug up 202 and they left the big holes in there forever. You know, so we've had some bad experience. The general manager of WSSA assured us that their quality is much better, that he's on top of it, but we've got to be vigilant, and so we're going to do everything we can from public works side, but also I have a deputy CAO for economic development, transportation, infrastructure, Carla Reed, who is a former interim director of WSSC, and so part of her job is to make sure as we're doing this throughout the county, any of the work they do throughout the county, that we're on top of it.
And we have had problems with their paving in the past. They used a different mix than did we, and now we require them to use the same mix that we did last year.
All right, so let me ask you, are there more transportation questions, or we let Susan go home? We got a whole bunch of them.
What solution do you give us for the speed in our neighborhood? What solution do you give us for the speed in our neighborhood? Give us a
She's concerned
solution.
about how to solve the speed issue.
If you have speeding in your communities,
Yes.
obviously we're not the enforcement agency, but we certainly work hand in hand with the enforcement agency. They're kind of dispersed throughout here. We cannot do anything as much on the collector and arterial roadways. In the residential, if that's what you're referring to, there's a lot that we can do in addition to the speed humps, in addition to.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about speed. Speed.
It's a public safety, it's a public
Speed in our
safety.
neighborhood, sir.
Well,
I want to know, who do I call? Do I call this gentleman? This gentleman what?
If you want enforcement, you call the police
Then
department.
by the time we call them, they're gone already.
Well, I think a guess on the police department is that if they hear that there's excessive speeding going on in an area, that they have a way of monitoring to make sure.
Well, I see that Sergeant Blackistone is there, and she'll I think.
I'm getting frustrated.
What we can do, if you will send the streets in question to your, are you the president? Yeah. To the president. She will send it to us. If you're going to listen, I'll tell you how to do it. If you're not
Join the party.
The answer is call 776-2314. Leave me a message during the day. I get all 25 messages every night when I get home. And I have a hotline to Major Brewer, and of course our community officer, Vsaught. We do have an excellent member of District 6 who's known for his speed camera work, and it looks like it's time to bring him back out.
And you also got to be careful what you ask for, because a lot of times people complain about the speed, and the ones that get the speeding tickets when they come out.
Yes, I talked about that. That's the evidence. Doesn't work with me. And go on the driveway and watch them go by.
All right, what we usually do before the police department, goes in is we have a speed awareness program that we take out to the communities, and we do that for about 10 days, and then the police come in and they do a radar enforcement program.
All right, what I'm going to do here is we want to go to a little bit higher level because we have the county executive here for one and only. Let me let you ask
Believe
a
me, that's not
question.
higher level.
This is transportation, but it's taken away from the traffic. This is back to work and stuff we do at the brickyard and the MARC train. The problem with the MARC train on Camden Line, it does not stop. It does not run train in the middle of the day. And I understand that CSX and that's okay. But last time we had a manager's meeting, I said, well, why don't you have a bus out of Greenbelt swing down into the Mercury block? Right now, the bus stop's on the other side of Route 1, and we have to walk all the way across the bridge. Even if it was one during the middle of the day, because they used to have a bus going from Oden and back over the wall. They don't do that anymore. So there's no way to get from Greenbelt to Laurel without taking the regular transit bus, and you're looking at like another hour and a half commute just to get back home in the middle of the day.
Michelle, is that a CMRT bus you're talking about that used to make that connection from Anne Arundel? CMRT, which is
I
that
don't know
line
what
out
they
of
were
Howard.
running from Odenton.
But I think it was part of our question, Mary, and I think Susan has it when we talked about getting better public transportation, connecting us
Because right now,
in this area.
past Greenbelt, you have no way to get home,
Right.
or to the wall, unless you take the regular model bus.
Okay. All right, other transportation, then we're gonna switch topics because we have people with lots of other questions for Mr. Executive. Yes, sir.
I'm Alex Mitchell, I live on Brooklyn Bridge. With the BRAC realignment at Fort Meade and Conterra being built, are there any plans to extend the Green Line north up this way?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's, right now, there's nothing on track to do that. I mean, we're fighting for federal dollars. As you know, in order to expand Metro, you're fighting with 3 jurisdictions, you know, the state of Maryland, the district, and Northern Virginia. Right now, we're fighting just to make sure the purple line goes forward. So there's nothing in the works right now.
Okay,
A few years ago, there was money set aside to study it because of BRAC. But the county executive is correct, we have not done anything in the last years because we're focused on the purple line, on Route 1, and also lack of funds for many local projects.
Okay.
So I do have a follow-up, and I live on Claiborne in West Laurel, and my follow-up is, what kind of strategic planning are our county officials, state officials, and federal officials doing to plan for Conterra when it is finished? Because right now, I-95 is total gridlock. I work in Rockville, I won't use the ICC, too expensive. It's okay to get over there, but I really avoid 95. It's where it is now. Now, when you get all the development of businesses and residential, what are you doing about that?
One of the things that we're doing is we're working with the State Department of Transportation. We've got Susan's office that's also working, and from my main office, Carla Reed, who's heads that up, is looking at that. So we know there's going to be traffic issues there. We're
That's
going to.
an understatement.
Yeah, it really is.
are traffic issues.
Well,
I'm just that
yeah, one of the things we've got to make sure is that, and I've said this to the state, with it coming in, this is considered part of a state project, areas, and so it is imperative from the state that we actually get resources and dollars to help with some of these concerns that we have.
Part of what we're doing in conjunction to Conterra is, and there are 4 roadways that are included in the master plan. It's been on the books for 20 years to develop these roadways. The 2 roadways that we are going to be doing in the very near future, within the next 2 years, one is Virginia Manor Road, and the other is Contee Road. And they're both going from more rural types of setting roadways to urban roadways. They're going to have 2 lanes in either direction. They're going to have stormwater management. They're going to have, Mr. Genoka, they're going to have bike paths just for you. Bike lanes, I should say. They're going to have sidewalks. They're going to have street trees and other landscaping. We're going to have ESD, which is environmental site design, stormwater management, to the maximum extent practicable. And it will have all different types of the street lights won't be the usual street lights that you see. So we're trying to enhance them, make them complete green roadways. And that will help to relieve congestion, especially on Virginia Manor.
You didn't mention Gunpowder Road.
Not yet.
Well, because what you just mentioned is of no value to this community. Because Gunpowder, access to Conterra, for us to have access to Conterra, we need those facilities that you just outlined.
And that's in the works, but these are the 2 first ones that will be done.
All right, I'm going to switch topics here and let poor Susan go home unless you had a snowplow question. Okay. I think you bail. You bail. Go home and get those snowplows. And remember, this is West Laurel, not South Laurel.
I know.
Well, I want to say that because 10 years ago, we had someone, your predecessor, come out showing us why all the routes they had, and we were all saying we never saw a plow. He put up a map, and it was South Laurel, and we all looked at him and said, well, that's not where you are. And he told us, well, you're not in Prince George's County. So, that's a true story.
Well, I can certainly tell you that after having had Mr. Kenobi as your council person, and now Mrs. Lehman, if we don't
Really
look
cutting
where West
her.
Laurel is and where all the roads are, we really have a problem because they both got on the radios and out in their cars and went driving around to tell us where we needed to go. So give either one of them a call and we'll be out there.
All right, thank you for coming, and good luck tomorrow. So what other questions are on your mind for the executive? All right, let's take this one first, and then I'll go to that side of the room.
I want to reflect back to the post-hurricane period, if we might. Mary, you were aware of what went on in the post-hurricane period. It seemed like there was tremendous confusion with regard to getting power restored, streets cleared, and a haul away of debris. And the ability to get answers was convoluted at best. Okay, what's the learnings and what's going to be done this week?
And we have council, we have Mayor Moe, who just grilled BG&E.
Right.
Who might be able to shed some insights on what they had to say about
I mean, one of the things that
Well, BG&E.
yeah, BG&E, which before the hurricane and was my favorite place. It was Pepco that we were worried about. One of the things that we did, learning from, since we have many natural disasters that's happened in these last 10 months, so we've had a lot of practice. At our emergency center, which Director Moe opens up and brings all of our branch of government there. We actually invited both BG&E and Pepco to come in and give us their plans for how to deal with the outage that were going to happen. And we did it before the actual hurricane or any of the natural disasters happened. The plan that, quite honestly, BG&E laid out to us sounded plausible. They were ready for it. The thing they didn't do, which Pepco did, probably because Pepco took a lot of the hit during the snowstorm and things of that nature, is Pepco actually started in advance hiring contractors from around the region and from other states. So as you notice, it hit up the East Coast. BG&E did not. They assumed they had the personnel that could handle it, and so part of the deal that they made with me is that they would call and give us an update every 6 hours. Unfortunately, the 6-hour update was always the same. They didn't know when they were going to get it back on, as opposed to Pepco, which could send out crews and do it in advance. So finally, when they told me that they had additional crews coming in, they actually had to fly them from Alabama in here.
We had Oklahoma.
You got Oklahoma? So
They were here on the second day, just parked out there doing nothing.
yeah.
No chainsaw.
BG&E just didn't coordinate.
They didn't not only did they didn't coordinate, but they hadn't had drills with these folks before. They were bringing them in from the outside. They had to take who they could get, because everyone else up the East Coast had actually done a better job. So what it says to us, and we're continuing to learn, is the preparation ahead of time, bringing them in, and then one of the things that we've had them do is to have a staff member actually at the center with us. I know we had Pepco there. Did we have BG&E? Both were there, so that we didn't have to, and get the cell phone from the CEO of both organizations, which I had, of course, no. The guy from BG&E, I think not only was I blowing up his cell phone, but Howard County and everybody else was. But one of the things we want to make sure as we're drilling that we bring them in there and that we see their plan in terms of if a natural disaster happens and it happens on the East Coast, what is your game plan? What is your plan B in order to bring people in?
I can just say quickly, so the council had sort of a post storm briefing with BG&E and Pepco, and as somebody I think from this neighborhood said to me after the back-to-back, Hurricane Irene and then those heavy rains and the flooding that came the following week, said, I guess BG&E is the new Pepco, because Pepco finally got it right, and BG&E really did, Jim and Joe Salino, because they got a lot of the complaints as well, did not do such a good job. But when BG&E came in and the council got to ask questions, very tough questions about where was the coordination. They admitted that they had not been as prepared as they could have been, and what I expressed, and everybody knows the story in this neighborhood, was the frustration about the lack of coordination with Verizon and the Department of Public Works. This fiasco, this tree down on Brooklyn Bridge Road, and the three, and I'm not going to blame it on DPW&T because they knew what needed to be done, but there was this, circular conversation going on between Public Works and Verizon and BG&E where, it involved a pole down and wires, and where the wires still hot, and Verizon kept saying they were waiting for BG&E to come, and BG&E came and left, and so something that should have been resolved in a day or two took more like 4 days, and and they acknowledged that they needed to do more, excuse me, coordinating with Verizon and Comcast and and Public Works. So there's certainly an awareness there, and they said we're going to do better next time. And I don't know if the senator or Delegate Panganonik wants to add anything about it.
Let me pick up some follow-ups real quick. A whole bunch of hands on this one. I know back there.
The situation was, at the end of Brooklyn Bridge Road, Mary, there was Verizon on one side and BG on the other side. And they were waiting who is going to start what and when. It went on for 3 days. I went 3 times there. There were many people with me there. And what they did was, the guy said to me, we are here at 10 o'clock. We've been waiting since 9 o'clock this morning. No one showed up. They were standing in front of them. They were waiting. I don't know whose order was it, but they were waiting. We didn't have light for 3-4 days. It was horrible. Those guys were there. It was a matter of 1 hour.
Coordination. I think the question that I'm hearing is not the who shot John, because that event is past.
Right.
I think all of us as residents are asking,
yes,
how are you, Mr. County Executive, holding BG&E accountable? Those were our freezers of food that went bad.
Absolutely.
Our people who were renting hotel rooms because it was so bloody cold. You didn't pay us back for us. BG&E didn't give us any money back. So our question is, get dry ice. And we couldn't get dry. They didn't get dry ice, which they used to. So I think what you're hearing from the frustration is not the post-mortem, but what are the accountability measures that we at the state and the county level are bringing? Senator,
I'm happy to dive in on this because it's exactly the right question. And so there are a couple things. Number one, the legislature, with Delegate Frush and Barnes and Peña-Mellick and my strong support, passed legislation this year that imposes performance standards on utilities, that sets up very strong fines that the Public Service Commission can impose on the utility for these power failures. The idea is to shift their mindset from we can't spend any money to keep the lights on to we're going to lose a lot more in penalties with the PSC if we don't keep the lights on. So that's one thing we're doing, very serious, very strong. Secondly, the delegates and I, together with Councilman Lehman, wrote to the Public Service Commission after the hurricane, detailed the kinds of experiences that you all had and others of our constituents had, and said, we want you to look into these, we want you to do a hearing with BG&E. And we also, separately, have urged, and the governor has supported this as well, that the PSC say to BG&E Constellation, which is the owner of BG&E, and Exelon, which is the Chicago-based utility, that right now has a proposal in the Public Service Commission to merge Constellation and Exelon, that it not be approved unless they convince the Public Service Commission that they have developed a strategic approach to keep the lights on and repair this kind of damage. So those are the things that we've been working on. And Jocelyn, you want to add to that?
But not only did we detail in our letter that we gave to the councilwoman, it was a 4-way letter with the councilwoman. We also attached every single email that we got. It was a huge package and delivered it to them. So they did not only get a letter, they got your emails and every single phone call that we got. We logged it and sent it in.
Thank you. So, who's next? Who's got a question for the county executive?
I got it.
Well, let's see if anyone else hasn't asked, because I have some people who are in. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have a question. I've lived here 20 years, and only lately have we lost our power. We didn't for many years. And Bonneville has electricity, and I live on Bradford, and we don't have it. And it's the house right next to me, and I don't understand that. How can all of Bonneville be lit? And my lines are underground, theirs aren't. I don't know.
So I'm not going to handle those specifics. I think that it's a general issue. It happened all over. It's the first time in my 22 years of living in West Laurel I kept power. I was the only person. Literally, it's the funniest thing. Mine goes out at a drop of the hat. I didn't lose it a bit. It's hard to explain it. I think that has to do something that I did promise y'all. I sent out a note after this debacle, and we are working to get BG&E here. Mike Fowler's been rather busy at a more senior level, but a chance for you guys to really talk directly, because I don't think these folks can really address that. That's more of, there's some engineering issues, there's proposals like, if you're going to spend that much money, why aren't you burying it all underground? You know, I'm sure we all have lots of questions, but I don't think tonight's the place that we can answer those, to be real honest with you. Yes, sir.
Let's follow up on her comment that she's been here for many years, never had electricity going. But, you know, you used to see the trucks come around here, I mean, the orange trucks did year after year.
I got it.
Thing there. And they have not done it, and they've probably gone the ball a little bit. But, like somebody said, it's the bottom line. They don't want it, they want to save money.
I got it, but this is not the person who can
Well,
address that.
I'll address it very briefly, because the question is exactly right. It's a strategic issue, and that's why we said there need to be serious financial penalties in this country. What's really happened, why is it worse than 10 years ago? My judgment, I think the delegates agree, I think the county executive, it's worse because of deregulation of electric rates. That's what happened.
Right.
Ryan Moe, who's now working for the county executive, voted against deregulation of electric rates. Barbara Frush did. It's been a disaster because it turned them into financial speculators. They stopped investing in repairing the lines. They stopped investing in keeping things up to date. That is exactly what the Washington Post documented for Pepco about a year and a half ago. And BG&E is in the same situation. That's why it is. And the issue of the underground lines, I went through this during the hurricane, where you had in Russet, they're all underground, because in 1968 the legislature said new developments, they got to be underground. They're underground in Russet. They put up the tree that had fallen down, taking down the lines. They still couldn't get up, because what happened was the short circuit basically fried the underground line, and they couldn't get in the underground line. So what they got to do is what you're saying, is they got to keep up maintenance, they got to keep up the technology, and that's the strategic answer to it.
Okay. Let's go this way, and then here, President Evans had a chance.
Sir, I appreciate what you're trying to do, as I understand it, in terms of development, particularly around the metro centers. Is there any legislation that you require from the council that we can support, or from the state, in terms of where you're going forward here in at least the near future in terms of those activities?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's going to help us a lot, and the council is just passed it out of subcommittee, and I think they're going to bring it back up, and that's our Economic Development Incentive Fund. I think that will help us actually, because we're all looking at limited dollars. That will help us marry those dollars with dollars that they have at the state level, and be able to put resources into projects that are around our transit-oriented stops, and also maybe put some of the bike, not only bike paths, but maybe we can even talk about some of these bikes that we can have throughout the county. But that's a piece of legislation I think can help us. I think the state has been, our delegation and the senator, they've been extremely helpful in terms of making sure we got DHCD, the State Department moving here, and I think that's going to help us. But really, you're very blessed to have a councilwoman who works as hard as Mary does and looks at these issues, and I think gets it. I have to be very frank with you. Not everyone understands the concept of one Prince George's. There's many who look at it that if we focus on those underserved areas around our metro sites, established communities, that somehow takes away from the rest of the county. So just keeping that on the forefront, I think, would be helpful. But thank you for your question.
All right, I'm going to let folks know as Mary sneaks out the door. She's got a sick kid and has to make it to urgent care before 10. So I'll let you sneak through that door, Mary.
And if I could just say.
Sure, you have one last comment for you.
It's always so good to be here, because this is home for me, and I just wanted to point out to the county executive, we have some of the highest voter turnout in this county, and I think we're all proud of that fact. You know, what Melissa pointed out, that these are, in this county, the people you see in this room are as intelligent, as engaged, as committed, and as concerned and caring about this county and its future as anyone can come across. And I just thank you for turning out in such large numbers tonight. The other thing I just wanted to say quickly is I have two staff members here that I didn't have a chance to introduce because we sort of launched right into the Q&A. Matt Dernoga back here. Matt, if you could stand up, and you recognize his last name. He's fantastic. Matt does policy work for me. He's my numbers guy like his dad. He's a whiz with the budget. And then Elena, where's Elena? Elena Luyo is in the back of the room in the pink blouse, and she does a little bit of everything. She's wonderful. She usually answers the phone, but she does constituent work and all kinds of good things. She was the one who met yesterday. I don't know if Gary Cunningham is going to have a chance to talk at all about the code issues that you discussed, enforcement issues, but she was the one who met with him, because that's always been a major concern here in West Laurel, is code enforcement. So, okay, thank you.
All right, we have one more question, and then I wanted to segue right into code enforcement. So
Let me say, as Mary's leaving, as I said, you're very blessed to have someone not only, so it proves you're a smart voting part of the county. You sent a really great councilwoman who keeps me on my toes, and believe me, on any issue that you're concerned about, she doesn't give me a break, but she is terrific, and if we can give her another round.
Question? Yes, my name is Debbie Farrell, I reside at 6900. And I actually have a series of questions that I would like you to address. Getting back to before we were interrupted with the transportation, somebody had posed a question about the new legislation that had been introduced. And you had stated when you were explaining it that you wanted to have your goal as introducing and maintaining checks and balances within the system that needs to be there.
You're talking about the volunteer firefighter, right?
Correct.
Yes.
That legislation.
Yes.
So I'm correct in saying that you currently appoint the fire chief, correct?
I appointed the fire chief, and the council approved the fire chief, yes.
Okay, so that's correct. I just want to make sure I'm clear on things so I don't confuse anybody in the room. And the legislation submitted would change the current process where the 9 commissioner members who are voted on and by their peers and the volunteer, that would change then to appointing 3 civilians, 3 career, and 3 volunteer personnel that are appointed. That's correct as well? So that's correct.
They would be appointed and approved by the council.
But the number of 333 is part of what is currently being negotiated.
Okay, but the current commission is all volunteers, was stated earlier. And Mary Lehman had stated, Councilwoman Lehman had stated that about 2/3 of the fire service provided to the communities is by volunteers. So that's a pretty good match. Councilwoman Lehman had clarified.
So what's your question?
I'm getting to it, and I know, and I apologize, but you know, these checks and balances that you talk about, the new commission would be appointed by the fire chief, the council members, and who? So now you're talking about the 2 top slots are going to be appointed by you.
And approved by the council.
Okay.
Your elected representative.
My elected representative. But now they're currently voted on by the people who are working and who they're serving in their communities.
But they're, the dollars that we're talking about that they control, $12 million, are county dollars.
Right.
So what you would have is the council members and the county executive would appoint and approve. That's what we're proposing.
It sounds to me, though, that you're removing checks and balances.
How was that?
Instead, and I'd like you to clarify, that's why I want you to clarify.
So this is the
It
question,
sounds
because
like you're
we're not going to go
removing-
down this path tonight in the room.
Well, I'm not sure what count you're talking about.
A
It sounds like
detailed
you're-
discussion, this is not the forum.
Well, if it affects my service of
It
fire
does.
and ambulance coming to my house, and the amount of money and taxes I'm gonna be paying for that service, then I
How is it
think
gonna
it
affect
is
your
relevant.
service?
Well, if there's no availability of the volunteers who are
We didn't say
providing.
there wasn't gonna be availability. Where'd you get that from?
Well, this is what I'm wondering, I want you to address that and clarify.
No, you know what we're talking about, right? The fire commission,
Yes,
not the firehouses.
okay,
There
that's
is a
correct.
distinction.
Yes, and okay, so
So
tell me
this is the
how.
commission that does,
The
maybe you ought to explain the
two
commission.
two bills have absolutely nothing to do with providing fire and EMS service to you or to anybody else in the Georgia County. As far as getting fire trucks or ambulances to you, they will still come today as they did yesterday.
And those will be career or volunteer people?
We're not doing anything with the volunteer responders. This has nothing to do with the commissioning response of fire trucks or ambulances. It's the administration of everything that has to do with the administration that is currently covered under the fire commission.
But that current administration is run by all volunteer firefighters.
Okay, I really am gonna stop right here, because I'm getting signals from everyone in the room who are asking me to step in here. I think it's a legitimate question to ask, is our service going to be impacted? And the second question
And the
is,
question is no, it will not be impacted.
the question about who is on the commission, I agree, because there's some questions we have in general. I think that's a legitimate one, but my understanding is it's been tabled as you guys go back to the drawing board.
Right.
Is what you said earlier tonight.
Right.
Am I correct?
Exactly.
The reason that's what I'm saying is, it's because it's in the drawing board.
Now that would be a good picture.
Bond, can you
While the process is going. Is brought up, because what you think today may change tomorrow morning at the discussion table, but it is appropriate for you to voice your opinions. While the process.
These are mine, where's yours?
Brought up, because what you think today may change tomorrow morning at the discussion table, but it is appropriate for you to voice your opinions, send a letter, and reach out.
Levon, can you give her a card? You can come up and we'll sit down with you personally. Okay?
So I don't
All
want
your
to
questions.
curtail your questions, but I'm just saying that it's kind of hard. So I have a couple of things. I have one that came in and I want to cover because I see a number of seniors in the room. And I do want to cover a question because it came from a couple of seniors, and then I'll reach out. This may hit where you want because I saw your hands. I got you. Has to do with Laurel Hospital. For the past 15 years, our elected officials at all levels have told us how they're going to fix the hospital system and healthcare in Prince George's County. Anecdotally, this was given to me this past week, that someone did an ambulance run here in West Laurel recently, and it was a serious condition. It wasn't something minor. And the ambulance crew said, oh no, we're not taking you to Laurel Hospital. Which one would you prefer, Holy Cross or Montgomery? Your condition's too serious to take you to Laurel. The quality of Laurel Hospital has become very substandard, and after 15 years, the residents up here, the residents in Chevrolet, are frustrated. So what I'd like to ask you is, not putting it on you, you weren't responsible. But what is it that your administration is doing substantively to bring quality care to Prince George's County?
Well, I'm pleased by the fact that we were able to enter into an MOU with UMS to not only bring UMS in here to Prince George's County, but actually to build a regional health care facility. What that will mean throughout Prince George's County is access to quality health care. It will give us not only Prince George's County dollars going in, but state dollars. And I think this will help us in terms of what's going on, not only up here at Laurel, but also what's going on at Prince George's Hospital. And that has been done. It's something we've been working on. I think when Brian was in the House, I was in the House. When Senator Roosevelt was a delegate, we were trying to get that solved, and we were able to do it. So that's really going to help us move along.
Do you have a timeline for it, sir? Because a number of seniors really wrote in concerned about this.
Well, the MOU was signed, and we're working with the state right now on funding issues, but part of that is UMS will start coming in early in helping with the direction of the hospital and everything else. Oh, University of Maryland Medical System, which is one of the top, medical schools in the country. And also next to Johns Hopkins will give us a quality group coming in to help us.
Okay. Do you have something
Yeah,
else?
and I sit on health. And we had a hearing on the health committee about 3 months ago where we discussed it with all the parties. And I can tell you that although it's been a while, the state and the county have been committed and have each put money every year, like $12 million each, to be able to keep the conversation going. This looks very promising because it is the University of Maryland system.
Thank you.
Right. What it will do for Prince George's County also is that we've been putting $15 million in there as a stopgap. This is finally a solution to the problem. That means once we build this for us in Prince George's County, it means that we get out of the hospital business, and the people who should be in the hospital business will be there. So it's a great one for us.
All right, we have one more question. Who was it who's got their hand up in the back? Yes.
Oh, I had a comment. I had just a very close relative come out of Laurel Hospital. I worked there many years ago. I feel like even though there's not to say anything against Gladstone Spellman, it's not against her, but I feel like there's a microcosm of what was going on in the whole United States, where you have the real wealthy, and then you have the people that are just down the bottom. And I've seen some housekeeping stuff that they're supposed to have a company come in there and train them. I was like, somebody, drill sergeant in the Marines, they would say, down for 50. And some of the stuff where they need to have, where a patient can be in there and have some type of backing where the patient can have a backing instead of AMA or the nurses or whatever. And I commend the ambulance, whoever it was, that said, okay, don't go there. And I've seen other ones where they say if the hospital is not good, we're not going.
All right.
And I know that people that can do it, but we need.
I'm looking at my watch. It's 9:15. I've asked a lot of other people's questions. I'd like to ask my own question of the county executive before we wrap up, and then I think we'll be able to talk to his members. We didn't get to any of the code enforcement and zoning stuff. I know you have a lot of questions, Mr. Cunningham's here. So my question, sir. Prince George's County is like a lot of areas in the United States. We've lost value. The economy's really in the crapper. And it doesn't seem to be coming back in the Washington area in Prince George's County. Our brethren in Montgomery County are doing a bit better. Our sisters in Virginia are doing quite well. And we have our property values here in West Laurel that have really plummeted and have not come up, regardless of what Brack was said, regardless of all of the other promises that have been made. It's a systemic issue. The word Prince George's County has a connotation, sir. I'm proud of Prince George's County. To me, who lives here, I know it's a rich, diverse place, but to people outside, they look at the school system, they look at the hospital system, they look at the quality of the roads, and they're reluctant to come and move here. I work in DOD, and trust me, none of my Brack brethren will touch us. No matter how many times I tell them West Laurel's a great place to live. So what are you doing, honestly, what kinds of programs are you looking at to sort of improve? It's not saying you can't fix the infrastructure overnight, those billions of dollars. We can't change everything overnight. You talked about before. But one of the things that we don't do is talk about the positive aspects of Prince George's County. People come to West Laurel, love it. Your kids play in their yards unsupervised and nobody's particularly concerned. You know, we have people who walk their dogs at this hour of the night. So what are we doing to talk about the positive image of Prince George's County? I know you can't fix my house price. But how are we fighting back? Because it's a losing battle when we talk about schools and things. That's such a long-term entrenched problem.
Yeah, that actually is probably a great question. It's 90% of my job that I found out. I really thought, you know, when I ran for county executive previous 2 times, when I didn't win, I thought the job was actually coming in every day and running the government, which is part of it. But the greater part of our job, especially now, especially at what we've been through, is to really get people to focus on what Prince George's County is. Everybody's reputation, whether you're Montgomery County, Howard County, or any place else, is based on your public education system. That is why people talk about Fairfax County, that's why they talk about Arlington. It is because that is your reputation, and it's our reputation. So we've got to change that. That's why under this administration, not only did we fund what the school system asked for, we took an additional $14 million out of our fund balance and put it toward education, how we affect in-classroom test scores. We want to go in there, how do we get better, effective teachers? How do we retain teachers so we don't lose them after 7 years in the county? But going after it, that's going to take time. You know, we're making progress, but it's going to take time. So it means we have to do the other thing, which is public safety. It is why we want to make sure, not only as we talk about our fire department, but our police department, our state's attorney's office, that we make the changes to make sure that the outside world can understand when we say that Prince George's County is safe, and Gary can tell you this, that we're at a 35-year low in terms of crime across the board in Prince George's County. We're making progress. But finally, and I think this is why it's great to be county executive at this time, even with the economy collapsing, even with everything else that's going on around. Because if you look at it, the whole focus now is back on the federal government and back on Washington, D.C. You look at the development in the Washington, D.C. area, you look at Montgomery County, Arlington County, you look at Fairfax County, over the last 20 years they've developed up. In Prince George's County, we haven't even tapped our potential. But yet we sit around these metro sites that give us the ability, as people are looking toward Washington, D.C., looking to come back here, for us to take advantage of it. That's why it's important for us to have the resources to go into these areas around transit-oriented development and actually convince people at the federal level not only just to come here, but to come here and lease space. Because we have these transportation, but we're going to have to put the dollars there. I think it's a great time for us. I wouldn't trade it with anybody else because I think we have the potential to grow. And what I try to do on a daily basis when I go to Annapolis or any place else is tell the state they ought to invest in Prince George's County. If you want to grow economically, we have the best potential to do that. If you want to grow in terms of population, we have the best potential. We just need to make sure that we're out there selling ourselves the way it should be sold. And I told anybody, I will go anywhere at any time in any place and talk about how great Prince George's County is. Because it's not a lie. It is the truth. But we need to make sure we live up to the promises that in this administration will. And that's why we're going to put the resources. When I talk about the $50 million EDI fund, it's not just because we want $50 million in the funds. I'm sorry, Economic Development Incentive Fund. What we decided to do in order to get people to start looking at Prince George's County differently is in Montgomery County, they have a $4 million investment fund. In Baltimore County, they have a $4 million investment fund. Prince George's County, we did. What I wanted to do was to have something that when people saw it, they say, wow. And we thought about taking some of the fund balance, thanks to folks like Councilmember Denoga, who left us some money. We said, well, what can we do with that money? It just sits there. How do we take that and spur commercial development growth, which really means growing our tax base, so we're not dependent on property taxes, and we can invest more. And the idea was $50 million, nobody else has done that. The state has $70 million, but nobody has $50 million where you can target a program or development and grow jobs and economic development and attract businesses to the county. But I want people to start thinking about us differently. It is why we made the changes that we made in the government, and I think that's going to help drive the conversation. It's starting to happen. It's going to be slow. It's going to take some time, but it's starting to happen. People are starting to look at us differently. And my commitment, while I'm in office, is to carry that out and to every day make sure that we hire people who understand that their job is not just to come here and do a good job, but to sell this county, to make you feel comfortable. It's why we talk about BG&E and Pepco. One of the reasons that I want to make sure that we have the executives come in Prince George's County is to let them know we care about what they're planning to do in terms of disasters that happen here. Because it all goes to the psyche of how people feel about where they live. And we want you to feel great about it. Because I know I do. I love Cheverly. As I told him, I'm doing this job for a very, very selfish reason. I've moved my entire life. I grew up in the military. I ain't moving no more. When I leave this job, I'm going to be right there in Cheverly. So I want to make sure I make it as great as possible so that everything I need is right here in this county. Thank you.
Some of you wanted more questions. I think my personal goal was to get the executive out here so he saw where we were. He saw the beauty of West Laurel. He saw the diversity of West Laurel. And frankly, more importantly, the fact that we pay attention to things in North County, South County, East County, Mid-County. And at one point, there was a proposal to have Tucson County as our good senator back there, if I remember. But we wanted you to really understand that you're engaged and interested. And as a thank you, we found these when we cleaned up. I'm not sure what we left over from. But I want to hand you an official I Love West Laurel t-shirt.
I do. But this will be in my office if you care to come see it, so please come visit me.
Folks, I also want to mention, we do have a number of people here tonight. We still have Mr. Cunningham proposed, we have some folks from the ER, we have some folks. So if you'd like to, as you stand up, I think there's probably some stuff out in the other room. We're going to pull the chair up and help it away. But there are folks here that we can still sit and talk with, as well as our District 6 police, the